The Analects is a collection of sayings by Confucius and anecdotes about him compiled by his followers. Confucius is this ancient Chinese philosopher from somewhere around 500 BC, so 500 years before the birth of Jesus Christ and a little bit before Socrates. He is enormously influential in culture, in history, and even in religion. We philosophy teachers tend sometimes to neglect Confucius and focus on the moral philosophers of the West, people like Kant and Mill and Aristotle. And there's nothing wrong in studying Kant and Aristotle, but Confucius is a great philosopher himself, and he's an interesting moral philosopher, and I think it's better not to neglect him. Now, in the Analects, Confucius analyzes right and wrong as objective truths, and we can also analyze them as objective realities. What is right because it is rooted in the nature of things. I think Confucius qualifies, depending on how broadly we define the terms, as a natural law philosopher, as a natural law ethicist, as even a virtue ethicist, much like, in both of these respects, the Aristotelian tradition in the West. Different in some respects, but similar in these respects. Right and wrong are rooted in the nature of things. And that nature of things has a name. There's a word for this. It's the word Tao. T-A-O or D-A-O. In the Chinese, Confucius is speaking, Tao means the way. And the way is the nature of things that we have to be aware of and that we have to live in accordance with. The universe itself follows the way. It obeys the rules prescribed for it. And we must imitate the universe in its obedience of the way. And the way, or the Tao, teaches us certain principles. One of the important principles of the Tao is the Golden Rule. This is famously expressed negatively by Confucius. Do not do to others what you want them to not do to you. Now, Confucius also gives us at least a hint at a positive version of the Golden Rule, when he tells us, for example, seek first to understand and then to be understood. You want to be understood, seek first to understand. And when he tells us a virtuous person wishing to be established first seeks to establish others. So here we have these hints that you should do to others what you want them to do to you, and not only not do to others what you want them not to do to you. Confucius also tells us that a good person cares for the good of all, so obviously not only for himself. So the Tao seems to teach the negative Golden Rule and at least point towards the positive Golden Rule in Confucius' understanding of it. Now, the teachings of the Tao are important and we must strive to live by them, but Confucius doesn't think any of us actually quite measure up. He thinks it's impossible, or nearly impossible, to find a person who is completely virtuous. He says at one point, I have not seen a person who loved virtue. Nevertheless, we must strive. We must always apply ourselves to being virtuous, or at least to becoming more virtuous. He says, when you have faults, do not fear to abandon them. Now, if we had to summarize the teachings of the Tao in a single word, frankly, I don't know what it would be, but if I had to guess, I would say harmony or unity. But we would need to understand what that means. Harmony or unity is between our nature as humans and our principles. We should subscribe to and profess the principles that are consistent with our nature, because we are under the Tao and we must recognize this. We should have the principles that are taught by the Tao. But there should also be a unity and a harmony between those principles and the way we live. We should live by our principles. And there should be a harmony between how we treat others and how we treat ourselves. And there should even be a harmony in how we treat all humans. Now, here are some moments in the Analects supporting all this. Here's a bit of dialogue from one passage in the text. Confucius says, my doctrine is that of an all-pervading unity. And his disciple Tsang simply answers, yes. Then apparently Confucius goes away, and other disciples of him ask Tsang, what do his words mean? And Tsang says, they mean to be true to the principles of our nature and the benevolent exercise of them to others. This and nothing more. This is where harmony is. Harmony between the principles of our nature and how we exercise those principles in our lives. Again, Confucius is famous for saying this: all within the four seas are his brothers. All within the four seas are his brothers. This is like that sentiment you may have heard somewhere else. We're all part of the same human family, that sort of thing. The idea here is that in at least some important respect, all men are brothers, or all humans are part of the same family, and all human beings deserve our respect. And then again, the golden rule is itself a teaching of harmony and unity. Do not do to others what you want them to not do to you. If you wish to be established or to be understood, seek first to establish others, seek first to understand. Let there be a unity and a harmony between how you treat yourself and how you treat others. These are the teachings of the Tao.